Are Boise politics going to ruin all of Idaho? Ooh, that's a spicy topic. So buckle up. Eric and I are going to dive into that right now. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button, tap the notifications bell so you can stay up to date on all of our latest content. Our real estate team specializes in helping conservative families and single people move to North Idaho. So if you're thinking about moving right now or 12 months from now, give us a call, text, or email. We would love to help you make that smooth move. All right. We didn't want to make this video, but here we are. I've had multiple people call me and ask me what the hell is going on in Boise because they're thinking about moving here and they're coming from a state that has gone completely off the rails and they don't want Idaho to go off the rails. When we started researching this, Eric and I started digging into some stats, I started to become genuinely concerned. And we're going to break that down in this video. So stick around to the end. It's going to get spicy. We would love to hear your feedback on it. You know, whatever way you are, send it because this is potentially the most important topic in any of our lives right now.
And I think if there's any state that's equipped to recognize what could potentially be coming, it's this one. There's a lot of people from other states that moved up here and take an active role in the community to try to avoid some of those pitfalls that have affected other states. So I think we're poised to address that as it comes up, but it's important to see the signs, right?
Right. And we just talked about this because to really appreciate the good, you have to come from the bad. You got to understand how bad things can get. And that's a lesson for all of life, right? Not just politics, but people coming from California, Oregon, and Washington, they have seen the slide. I saw it. I lived in California for a long time. I'm not from there. Don't go that road. But I lived there for a long time, and I watched the decline. I watched as drugs were decriminalized when I was a cop there, and then things really started to go off the rails. It's a process that has replicated itself in all of these states that are super liberal, and we are afraid that it's going to happen here. But to understand, you come from that, you understand what happens. And I think that's the key to heading it off. So there's hope. Don't come out of this video thinking there's no hope. There's hope, and we're going to get into that by the end. But let's jump into some numbers. These numbers are going to disturb you, so sorry. But it's the truth, and we are committed to always bringing the truth regardless of all else.
Right. And I love that you said that, man. Good days aren't good ones unless you've had bad ones.
100%.
And a lot of people get a lot of heck for moving here from other states, but they weathered and endured living in states that don't allow freedom and force them to wear masks and cram ideologies down their kids, into their kids' heads. And then they earned enough in a place that sucks and rewarded themselves by moving here. So absolutely keep paying attention to take an active role in recognizing what, it's the boiling frog analogy.
Yes.
What little things are tweaking that temperature up a little bit?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. And, you might be of the mindset of, oh, you should stay in your own state and fix it. Well, when you live in rural Northern California and you're a through and through cowboy, but you're being dictated by the policies that are written in the Bay Area and LA and Sacramento, there's not a damn thing you can do about it because there's so much of a population base there. You can scream to the end of your breath and do everything you can on a local level, but you're not going to make a difference.
We don't have to look far away either, because the biggest concern is if Boise continues its trend and changes all the way, right? Pushes and goes full blue. Is it going to be enough to swing it? And we've seen that in Washington for the longest time. Seattle was the largest population base. Now, Spokane's fairly big now, but the tail wags the dog.
Yes.
So I think that's a big concern for people, which I can understand. And kind of what prompted this is it was national news what the Boise City Council did. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago? For those that don't know, the state of Idaho passed House Bill 41, which basically banned the flying at state facilities. They banned the flying of flags that weren't the state flag, United States, military, or prisoner of war. Boise City Council voted 5-1 to include the pride flag as a city flag so that they could try to usurp that House Bill 41.
So they found a loophole to make that a city flag and now be able to fly it on the city grounds. I should preface this, and I know Eric feels the same way. We all feel the same way on this team, right? We do not discriminate. We do not hate anybody that has a different sexual orientation. I love them. I have family members. I have good friends that are gay. That's not the issue at hand here. The issue is laws like this actually exclude more people than they include, and it opens the door for other things to be flown that you may or may not agree with. That's my issue with it.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap my brain around that, right, when you're talking about such a small portion of the population and a whole, again, same friends. I've served with several people who live different kinds of lifestyles.
Sure.
And the majority of those that are good contributing members of society just want to live their life and do their thing. And, like everybody else does, I don't understand the prioritization of putting that in front of everybody else and creating a bunch of animosity amongst the rest of the population. Some are going to see that I think there's zealots on all sides, sure. Right? I still think even right-wing extremism can be really dangerous. Religious extremism can be really dangerous. So you're just going to alienate a whole bunch of people and just create a bunch of strife where there wasn't any. It's just driving wedges. We just talked about that.
It is driving wedges, exactly. And yes, you are going to alienate some people because there are some people that don't agree with that lifestyle deeply.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And now they're going to feel excluded. And what does that open the door to? Confederate flags. What if BLM? What if the KKK wanted to come in and put a flag up now, and you've started allowing all these other flags? Now, you know what I mean? There's no limit to it.
Right.
And it opens the door for absolute insanity.
It doesn't mean you can't fly it to your house.
Who
cares?
Sure.
Do you?
For sure.
Totally
Live
okay.
your life.
Put it on your car. I don't care.
The only flag that I think we can all agree to, we should all agree to, is the American flag. That's it. And maybe a state flag. I would have said city flag, but Boise just went ahead and ruined that. So, have that. Nothing else. Because if you start allowing one, then you have to allow others, and who knows where it goes from there.
Well, let's be honest about what that was. That had very little with flying a piece of cloth from a mast or a pole, right? It had everything to do with sending a message to the rest of the state or to the Idaho State Legislature in general that Boise is starting to shift when you break down the numbers, especially over there in District 16. They call it Boise proper. Mm-hmm. When you start breaking down election results, that's just sending a very loud and clear message. And some of that stuff that I read to you yesterday on Reddit.
Oh, did you save any of that?
No.
Okay.
Oh, well, I did. It's on my laptop. But some of the commentary on there and just
Reddit was disturbing. We were looking at that, and there are people that are intentionally coming to this state with the intent to flip it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, saying I moved here to be closer to my parents, but I intend to flip all that. I'm going to counter any of the conservative votes, and we're going to change these policies here. And
I just can't wrap my brain around it. When you come from, it is the logic of it is so flawed. When you come from a state or a city that is overrun with homeless and drugs are rampant and it's just a complete shit show, and you look at the policies of that city and you're like, we should replicate that in Idaho. I think Idaho needs more of that.
There was some commentary saying just that in the response. Well, yeah, but you're saying it's policies. It's all about the population. Well, how racist are you? So you're saying it's because of the demographics of your population as opposed to the policies that reward criminal behavior, right? You've decriminalized a lot of talk about the precursor crimes all the time, but if you decriminalize some of the petty theft stuff, it's broken windows theory, then it turns into all the higher level crimes.
I saw it firsthand in California as a cop. The first time I wrote a ticket for methamphetamine and I let that person go, I knew it was the end.
Yep, that is that right there.
It went from a felony to a ticketable offense.
And how many steps along the way were there before that where you guys are like, that's not a huge deal, right? And citizens say the same thing, all right, whatever, marijuana. And
medical marijuana.
Yeah, I've said a long time, dude, if you're sitting in your garage eating Funyuns working on your car, I don't care. Right. That's just not, that to me is not somebody that's a significant threat to society. But when you look at Colorado, that we just, it was a real popular video that we did.
Yep.
They're the number 2 highest crime rate in the country. Well, it's no surprise to me that you legalize marijuana. So a lot of people that bring a lot of the other crimes with that are going to go to Colorado. Washington's the same way. So
if people would just listen to cops for a minute, all the problems would be solved.
Well, and it comes as no surprise that when it comes to encouraging proactive policing, Boise is not at the top, right? I think some of those policies follow. Well, you're working. There was a point in time where I almost lateraled to Spokane. and I just accepted in my own mind that I work for the people that were elected by the civilians. I'm doing their bidding.
Right.
I'm not out there to be this force myself where I get to make all of my own decisions. I'm doing what I am ordered to do by the people that were elected by the citizens that I serve. So you have to accept that they don't want you to do anything proactive. They just want you to respond to calls for service.
I'm assuming at some point that will flip. At some point, the people that are just bleeding hearts will have had enough of walking over human feces and dodging crazy homeless people in the street, and they will be like, you know what? I think our cops should do something about this.
You hear that, and I honestly think, I've said this before, out of all the West Coast states, man, I think we have some encouraging stuff coming up from some folks in California. I think California might be before Oregon and Washington. Washington's doubling down on shit policies.
It's like they're behind the curve. California's been like, oh, we done fucked up a long time ago.
Yeah.
We're starting to come back out. And
we hit rock bottom. Road to recovery, maybe.
And Oregon and Washington are like, you know what? Hold my beer.
I just think you're looking that some of that damage is so deep.
It's so deep, man. Like the gun laws in Washington and the taxes. I mean, we're literally getting calls every day from people in Washington that are like born and raised, lived there for 60 years, and they're like, beautiful state. I mean, it is a beautiful state. Awesome. Yeah. And they're like, I'm done. Like, I'm done living under the thumb of this government because it's in complete insanity.
Well, and it's not just Washington. You know, our boy JB, I'm not going to out him on here, but he's coming up from the other one I referenced that's number 2 in the country. Another beautiful state, awesome mountains, rivers, everything you could do outdoors. And he just said, it's the schools, man. They've infiltrated the schools. I can't even have any control over my own kids. At 14 years old, they don't have to tell me what's going on with them at school.
That's complete insanity.
That's madness.
And honestly, like, I don't want, you know, my kids are older now, but I wouldn't want my little kids exposed to alternative lifestyles and treated as though it's all completely normal. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. Don't jump my shit. I have to say that because I will get jumped. But what I'm saying is kids don't need to know about that. They don't need to learn about these things when they're in 5th grade.
Right.
You know, they don't. It's just over-sexualized. I'm not interested in my kids learning. That's a conversation I can have with them if I choose to. And you can, as a parent, if that's what you want, you can choose to do that at home, but we don't need to have it in school. I also am deeply opposed to BLM flags and stickers in school. I have a personal history with them as a former riot cop, and I find that organization to be disgusting. I looked into it a little bit, and 30% of the funds that they raise actually go to, you know, things that benefit the population. The other 60 whatever percent goes to insane salaries for their executives, and the founder has bought multiple $1 million mansions. Like, it's completely corrupt.
It's fraudulent. It's
completely.
It's completely.
So fraudulent. You're not making a statement. We can all agree all lives matter, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you're throwing everything at this and you're putting this political statement in front of my kids, and I'm not okay with that. I have seen them on the riot line. I've seen how that group flying that flag behaves towards black cops who are my friends and coworkers and treats them like complete dog shit. So
worse than you.
Worse.
Yeah.
Much.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, that doesn't belong in schools either. The only thing that belongs in schools is the American flag.
Yeah.
We can all agree to that.
And, you know, science.
Yeah. Right? Well, yeah, that does.
English, stuff like that. You know, focus on some of that. And believe it or not, Idaho's test scores are not as bad as people like to make it out to be. That was my other favorite part of Reddit, and I'm really pissed that I didn't bring it because some of that was hilarious. Actually, I may even cut just to pull up the one that talks about how conservatives are only conservatives because they're uneducated and poor.
Oh, right.
And
you read that one.
And yeah, they can't afford anything else. So it was awesome.
That's incredible.
Yes, exactly.
That's
I think people that tend to lean towards politics generally are left.
Right.
I just, the rest, a lot of conservatives I know are just, they've worked their asses off their whole life. They've had a lot of success, and they know they're just banging their head against a wall in a room full of people and having to accommodate all of this. I just think it tends to lean that
I think
way.
we tend to want to be left alone, and in doing that, it's like, I don't want to get involved. But we need to get involved.
Yeah.
We need somebody retired person out there who has lots of free time and is a fantastic leader to step up for the city of Coeur d'Alene. We will get into that. Yeah. We should backtrack. We got to get into some stats.
Yeah, let's do it.
And why I think we are at a precipice here, and we need to be very careful how we tread from here on out. Let's start with the populations.
Yeah.
Of the biggest cities in Idaho. So this is critical information if you believe that the tail wags the dog.
Top three. So, the top one is obviously Boise. That's 235,000 and change. Meridian's number 2 at 134,800, and Nampa is 114,268. So Boise and Meridian are both in Ada County, and Nampa's a little bit further north. But when you compare that to ours, if you take our 3 biggest cities in Kootenai County, CDA is 57,000, Post Falls is just shy of 45,000, and Hayden is 16,400.
That doesn't even add up to Boise.
It doesn't even add up to Boise. So when you're talking about, number of votes and stuff like that, there is a possibility that can get a little bit challenging. Mm-hmm. I mean, I still think the rest of Idaho is going to stay unanimously red.
Yes. So know that, and I've talked about this a lot in videos, that Idaho is becoming more red. I think as a whole, when I look at the numbers as a whole, but we're getting this pocket of dense population in the Boise area that is starting to shift, especially when you look at the voting numbers.
Yeah, and Sun Valley's kind of always been that way, but when you pull it up, there's a big blue in that District 16 in that Boise metro area. But just to give you an idea on how they vote, I think this last election's a pretty good barometer because it was so divided between parties. I mean, I thought Kamala Harris is one of the least electable presidential candidates we've ever had, but I think it gives you a pretty good idea. And in Ada County, it was 53.7% for Trump, 43.4% for Kamala Harris. So it's about a 10%.
That's shocking to me.
Yeah, it's still pretty close is what you feel like. If you compare that to Kootenai County.
Shouldn't feel that close.
Kootenai County was 74.8% for Trump and 22.9% for Kamala Harris. So less than 1 out of 4.
Shocks me there's that many people up here that would have voted that way.
Yeah, but I mean, Coeur d'Alene, metropolitan areas just tend to start to go blue. They just do. And I really, for a long time, wanted to blame Boise being purplish on, it's a college town. I think a lot of college towns.
Totally.
You get brand new voters, and I do not feel bad saying at all that I think our colleges are starting to tank because they're about indoctrination and less education.
100%.
And that's why I'm such a firm believer in like trade schools and stuff like that. But that made some sense to me on why some of those elections would be going that way. But now I'm not so sure, because you take a state like Oklahoma that's voted red for probably, 50, 60 years, something like that. I pulled up their county map, and they have 2 major colleges there with Oklahoma and OSU, and it's all red. So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some shift down there, but then you go down to Boise, and they've got shirts that say New California, and they mean it.
That's what I get.
It's just different.
It is. I get so confused because all of the people that call us, obviously we're unapologetically American on here, so I think, liberal people don't call us. That's fine. But all of the people that we help move, our real estate team, we help a lot of people move to this area, a lot of good conservative families. They're all like us, right? They're all like, they've come from somewhere. It sucks. I don't want to see that again. I'm in. Like, what do we have to do to keep that from happening? So we're kind of insulated up here, especially in what we do, in that we don't see those people. I'm sure they're coming. I guess they're probably more drawn to the Boise Meridian area because that area is so big. It has all of the amenities that they might be used to coming from California or Washington.
It's warmer. I mean, you're
sunnier.
Yeah, you're not going to get the, North Idaho is going to have a more significant winter.
There's not as many hairy-chested, bearded dudes down there, so it's not as intimidating if you're slightly effeminate.
There's no Sasquatches down there.
No Sasquatches.
Got to worry about that.
Yeah.
But the other thing with down there is there's more room to expand.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of running into the plains. Idaho's super cool if you go from the north to the south. There's a significant change in the topography going from one side of the state to the other. It's super cool, but man, there's more room to expand there. Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County area, we kind of get locked in mountains to the east. We've got some mountains to the north, and then you butt right up against Washington on the west side. So there's only so much room to expand.
Right.
So it's that part of it I can see. There's just more space, more room there.
Yeah, so hit me with some more numbers. So we've got the populations.
Yep.
Any other voting numbers that are
Oh, I did want to say, so Coeur d'Alene, you have to go down the list. We're number 7.
for population? Or
in population in the state.
Wow.
Coeur d'Alene's number 7, Post Falls is number 9, Hayden's number 17.
Huh.
In comparison to number 1 and 2 is Boise and Meridian.
And those are our big ones up here. I mean, that's all we got.
You got
the big
Twin
cities.
Falls, Idaho Falls. There's some other decent-sized city, Lewiston, some other decent-sized cities and all that. But when you start flying through and looking at districts and they're all voting primarily Republican until you get to 16. Then you get to 16. They had a state senator for District 16. They won that election Democrat by 18%. You go to District Seat A, they won that one by 33%.
Wow.
23%. I'm a cop.
Is,
right?
numbers aren't your thing.
Yeah.
Is District 16, that's Boise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that Boise proper that they were talking about.
Okay.
So in comparison, if you pull up Kootenai County, it's pretty much red down the line. Now, I'm just going to put this out there. I am not one of those that's like totally red-blooded Republican. I'm a policies guy. Like there's some candidates that I've looked at that are on the Republican day. I was like, dude, I just can't vote for you. You know what I mean? With some of the stuff. And again, I'm big on extremism on either side of it. Some of it is just, it gets pretty wild.
I fully agree with you. Yes. We are not right-wing extremists. Sorry.
No, yeah, I like to know what people's policies are, and if you can't speak to that and speak intelligently about it, and it's some smear campaign against just the left, that's not going to resonate with me. But for the most part, if you compare Kootenai County to Ada County voting, it's significantly different. So
how do we fix this?
Man, stay engaged with the community and be unapologetic about wanting to keep Idaho what you are moving to.
Yes.
Right? Just stay engaged and pay attention. That's why I've talked before about the Judicial Watch Group. I got a text from an officer today. He's like, hey, man, you need to check this one out. Like, where it's just rough. Like, you got to stay in front of it so that all of a sudden the water's not boiling.
Right.
And Idaho's in a unique geographic location because we're surrounded. I mean, you have Washington, Oregon, and California, and we're getting a lot of Colorado now, it seems like, that are starting to move up this way. So engage with your neighbors, still be a part of the community, have difficult conversations. We still exist in a state, and I call it the 20-year throwback, where you and I can have a difficult conversation and we can have healthy discourse, right?
Yeah.
Healthy discourse, I think, is important. We just talked about the Lakeland levy, which passed, by the way, which is sweet for a number of different reasons, and I get not everybody agrees with that, but you can have some healthy discourse with people and maybe provide a different perspective. Maybe they can provide one for you just because they've seen life from a different state.
So I heard, by the time this comes out, this will be old news, but the voting that happened yesterday, one of those was the public libraries. Victoria Bowman won. She came and talked to the Patriot Poor, great conservative values. She came here from California and was fed up with things that were going on and decided to run for this. And the person she ran against, I won't say her name, but that person was a registered Republican. But when you looked at the policies, it was not matching the values of North Idaho and what she was trying to do with the libraries, which I know you have feelings on that, but there is value there in making sure we're not talking about banning classic books or anything like that. We're talking about banning books that are borderline pornography, and not even banning them, but putting them in a separate place in the library that you either have to be of age to go in there or you have to have parental consent, which you can still access it. You can let your kids go see those books, but that's a little bit of common sense, I think. Anyway, Victoria Bowman won, so I think that's a good thing. And I heard
I must have misread that last night. I thought she lost.
But so Ed said by 2 a.m. they
totally
had
flipped.
tallied they had tallied all the votes.
Good to hear, because I was shocked by that.
Yes, that would have been a loss.
I was there when one of them came in.
Apparently, voter turnout was like low 20%, which they were expecting 8 to 10%. So apparently it was much better voter turnout than normal. It still seems dismally low, but I think people are paying attention and getting out there and making sure their voice is heard, and that is the number one thing that we can do.
Yes, and just be cognizant of what's going on locally and in the state.
Yep.
Truly in Idaho, every vote matters, and it's still unanimously a red state. That's the lifestyle that we live. I mean, our 2A protections are significant, and obviously the Idaho state legislature thinks one thing, and I don't put too much stock in what city council does, right? A single city council, I don't put a whole lot of stock in that, but it is important to pay attention. I'm big on trends.
Yeah. Is Idaho still a good place to live?
Yeah, hell yeah.
I agree.
I mean, it's still one of the safest in the country. We're still down 70% Part 1 crimes because we let our cops go be cops. That part's huge, and we're still small enough to where your voice is heard. If you want to come up and make a difference and engage within your community, you can take on a significant role. I'm super jacked. We did the levy video. I think we contributed to that. Whether you like the school board or not, I like having a hand in, reinvesting back into the kids that are growing up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just had somebody reach out that's coming from a state where she did a lot of that stuff, where she talked about, levies and police and fire negotiations and stuff like that. That's those are cool. Like, get involved and get engaged in some of that.
Yeah.
Just learn what it's like in Idaho. Idaho's just got a little different spin.
Yeah, don't, and I shouldn't have to say this to people that listen to this, and if you've made it this far, you probably don't hate us. Like, don't come here and try to change it unless you want to change it for the better.
Right.
But know that the better is whatever the values are that are currently here. People like it this way. So we don't want that to change. We do want you to come here. I've switched the argument in my mind because we get a lot of pushback of, mostly from people, locals that are like, hey, we don't want more growth here. But now I'm understanding that if we don't have more growth here in North Idaho, we will be dictated by the policies that are happening in Boise. And if you've grown up here, that will really piss you off. Yeah. So you should probably change your tune and say, hey, we want you as long as your values match our values. Please come, bring your families, bring your money, bring your jobs. We'll figure out a way to grow this thing sustainably so we don't eat up all the prairie land. But there's got to be a path forward here. And if we don't do something like that, if we don't actively recruit good people, we're gonna lose our rights real fast.
Right. And I think it's the collective will of the community, right? Too many people are moving from places where you become apathetic to what's going on in the community because it's done without you. It's done behind closed doors, where it's just shady politics. Here, we're not that big yet, right? You can actively go out and take on a role and influence elections and, all of that stuff. If you're moving here from another place, you're moving because you see value in growing here, either raising your family here or retiring here.
Yeah.
Where you've got more freedom and less government intrusion. I'm big on the least government intrusion.
100%.
Oh, it just made me think about my taxes, dude. Just immediately enraged me. Enraged me.
I don't need to be told how to live my life,
Yes.
right? Like, that's certainly not the role of the government.
Right. Exactly.
That's it.
Or how to raise my freaking kids.
Yeah.
How about some of those conversations we have,
Yeah.
right? Now, how about you let me have some of those conversations with my kids?
100%. Hey, thank you guys for joining us on this video. Would love to hear feedback, good and bad. Drop a comment. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We try to bring a lot of content like this. We are very community focused. We do sell real estate, so selfishly we plug ourselves. If you're conservative and your families are wanting to move here or single, whatever, come on up, give us a call, shoot us a text, email, whatever. We're unapologetically American. We're all former or current, no more current, former first responders, veterans. That's our whole team. That's who we serve. We love to serve, and we will serve you the same way. So Idaho needs you. Come on out.